Right, for more on the CBN's raising of interest rates and its likely impact on the Nigerian economy, I'm now joined by Mr. Bismarck Rewane, the CEO of financial derivatives company. Mr. Rewane joins us from Boston in the United States to talk us through this development. Mr. Rewane, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so, well, last time you were with us on the news at 10, the CBN, the Central Bank of Nigeria, raised interest rates to 18%, which has now risen by 50 basis points, even amidst rising inflation and slowing GDP growth yet again. Mr. Rewane, why is this happening?
Firstly, I think it's quite clear that the Central Bank of Nigeria is using monetary policy tools to control inflation, which is a traditional way of doing things. But the reality is that there's a limit to how much monetary policy can be, or interest rate can be used to control inflation. The truth is that our interest rates have increased so many times, and yet inflation is also being resilient. In other words, inflation is a hidden-headed problem which has not been solved and cannot be solved with one weapon, which is interest rates. The second thing is that there's a misunderstanding that income is the same thing as liquidity. The fact is that incomes are squeezed in Nigeria and liquidity is under pressure. The liquidity actually, there's excess liquidity and low income. In other words, monetary conditions are tight while liquidity is loose. You can borrow liquidity, but you cannot borrow income. And that is precisely what is happening right now. So there was some frustration and some candor. You know, the Central Bank of Nigeria is frustrated that its policies are not achieving the desired results. The target for inflation in Nigeria is 9% per annum, while inflation today is at twice the level, 22%. And food inflation in particular is at 24%. That clearly cannot be acceptable. And therefore, it is frustrating for policymakers. And coming at a time when there's a transition taking place, it's something that has to be looked at very carefully.
All right, so it still appears the Nigerian economy isn't doing very well. How does Nigeria compare with other major global economies in terms of GDP and other economic parameters? Is it just a global issue or just a domestic problem, if you like?
No, there's nothing peculiar about Nigeria. Nigeria's inflation is also going along the global trend. But what has happened is that whilst the United States have increased interest rates significantly, inflation has come down from as high as 9% all the way down to 6.4%. Now, that is significant. Whilst in Nigeria, we are seeing
Go ahead, Mr. Bismarck. Mr. Ronning, please go ahead. Go ahead, please.
So what we're seeing is that inflation in Nigeria while interest rates have increased for 7 consecutive times to 18.5%, we are seeing inflation actually increase all the way to 22.5% and food inflation up to 25%. But unfortunately, we've seen growth slide from 3.5 all the way to 2.6%. So there is slow growth, high inflation, high unemployment. And so the economy is not doing efficiently and it's not actually doing very well. So there's a cause for concern and some things have to change, but it cannot change only from monetary policy. It has to change from oil production, it has to change from fiscal policy, and it also has to change from the way we manage our inflation.
So in less than a week, or shall we say just a few days from now, a new administration will certainly come into power come May the 29th. What's the economic outlook for Nigerians from then on? Should we expect a change in the economic circumstances perhaps, or will things remain the same? What can you tell us?
They cannot remain the same. Definitely there'll be a change in government, change in people, and change in policies. But more than anything, there's going to be reform of institutions. If you do the same thing and expect different outcomes, then you are not bound, you are likely to fail. So what we are going to see a supplementary budget maybe in August. We're going to see inflation increase marginally again, and we are going to see the naira trade. It traded this afternoon at about 765 naira. It will probably trade higher. The about 770, 780. And the exchange rate for buying tickets in Nigeria has gone all the way from 460 all the way to 650. So tickets have become, in naira terms, have become more than 50% more expensive. And if you look at the inflation analysis, it shows that one of the major areas of failure has been air transportation within Nigeria. A Lagos to Abuja flight, one direction now is 85,000, return is about 170,000 naira. That used to be a return flight, a return ticket, Lagos Abuja used to be as low as 70,000 naira. It's now more than double. The same thing is happening for medical attention. Medical costs have increased and food prices. So what are you seeing? You're seeing food prices increase, transportation costs increase, and also you find that medical attention is also increased. These are critical. The only thing the only good news is that diesel, the price of diesel has actually come down from 850 to about 620 naira, which is good at this point in time. But the outlook is that there'll be changes. The outlook is that there'll be changes in people, changes in policy, changes in institutions, and one can only hope for the best at this point in time.
All right, we'll certainly leave it at that. Mr. Bismarck Rewane, we sincerely thank you for your thoughts on the news at 10.